So, good morning. So, what we are going to learn today, as I told, that today we are going to learn what is, today we are going to create process using C program, right? So, before we move into that, I would like to know from you what is process. Okay. So, I didn't get any answer from you. So, process is nothing but a program in execution. Okay. So, whenever you execute a program, uh, the respective program is suppose you have written a program, you have compiled it, so all those files, compiled files, the executable files, are saved into your hard disk, right? Now when you try to run that program, what happens, the code, the executable files is loaded into your memory, and for that, actually a virtual memory for that process is being created. Okay. So everything is you do in that program is restricted to within that virtual memory. The virtual memory again is mapped to some physical memory or RAM. Okay. So whenever you whenever you assign a variable, create a variable, or whenever you do something, so what is everything is done within that virtual memory. Okay. So in the heap, all the codes only belongs to that memory space or address space of that program. Okay. So that virtual memory space actually defines the process, you can say, and it contains almost everything about that process. Okay. So we'll get to know about that. So in a vague term, is process is nothing but a program in execution. Okay. So whenever you run a process, you run a program, a process is being created. A process is being created, and an PID is assigned to that process by the operating system. PID means the process ID. Okay, so using that process ID, the operating system can do a lot of thing, or you can also do a lot of programming using that process ID. Okay, so we'll get to know about those things today. So let me open terminal. So we'll write C program today. Okay, so let us go to the our OS lab file. So cd OS lab, where we are doing all the lab things, right? So all the lab file, all the sh files are here. So what we'll do today, we'll create a program. So before creating a process, so as I told you that whenever a program is run, a process is created, and the PID is assigned to that process. Okay, by the operating system. So we can get to know the PID from PSAX command, right? So if you do, as I show you before, like if you do PSAX, so it will give you the process ID and whatever is running. So bash is the shell currently we are running. So this terminal is bash, and its PID is 5354. Okay. So this is all the so all these programs are currently being in sleeping state or running state, whatever you can say. So all the program, whenever it is running, it is actually a process is created, and it is assigned a process ID. Okay, or PID. So we can also get, there is an API available to the programmer, from using which we can get to know about the process of the program which we are executing. Okay. So let us see. Suppose we want to. Okay, so let us create a C file, say nano, and give a name like uh, PID.c. Okay, PID stands for process ID. So PID.c. So what we will do now, we'll create a process, we'll write a program, and in that program, whenever it is running, a process ID will be assigned to it, and we want to show that process ID. Okay. So now for doing that, so hash include. So hash include stdio.h. Now the APIs or the functions or the methods, whatever you say, the declarations of the methods that we are going to do in this process creation thing is in unistd.h file. Okay, so we have to include this file, include unistd. Okay, it most probably stands for Unix standards, most probably, not sure. So unistd.h. Okay, so let us now write the main program, int main. And now what we will do, we are trying to show whenever this program is run, what is the PID of this program. Okay, so whenever the program is run, a process will be created, right, and a PID will be assigned to this process, so we'll get that PID. Okay, so printf. Okay, so let me get into that first. So to get the PID, the function is get PID. Okay, so this get PID function will actually uh, return you the PID of this process whenever it is run. Okay, so get PID actually returns you the type of like PID underscore T. Okay, so you can see this is a predefined type. As soon as I write it, it is in green color, right, like int. Okay, so PID underscore T is also defined in unistd.h. So the process ID actually, whenever you are dealing with process ID, the data type is PID underscore T. Okay, but if you get into that header file, or if you get into the details, but PID is nothing but is equivalent to int, integer. Okay, so the thing is like this is kind of this type def. This is kind of what they are done. So PID underscore T int. Sorry, the other way around. Type def int PID underscore T. Okay, so this is what probably they have done inside. Okay, so you can interchangeably use int in place of PID. Okay, so this is what it is done. So as I told, so get PID will return you the PID underscore T type things, right? So what will happen? So what we will do? Just a minute. আরে রেখে দাও না, কালকে ফেলে দিয়ে আসবো। রেখে দাও, ওই দরজাটা বন্ধ করে দাও। এই দরজাটা ভেজিয়ে দাও। Uh, okay, so as I was telling that get PID will actually return you the process ID. Okay, so you can take it into a variable, or you can directly show it. So what we'll do, we'll printf. So like the process ID is kind of %d, comma get PID. Okay, so what will happen? So if you look into it, so this program is nothing, simply just print the process ID when this program is run. Okay, so let us run this program and see what will happen. So I have saved it. Now I am getting exited. So what we will do now? We will now compile this file. Okay, so to compile a C file, we have GCC, right? GCC PID.c. So whenever you compile, whenever you run this command, what will happen? An executable file called a.out is created, right? So you can rename that executable file. You can give a name to the executable file. For doing that, you have to do -o switch, or -o option. Okay, so this means this GCC. It means this GCC will compile this pid.c file, and if the compilation is successful, it will give a name whatever you are giving now. So suppose I am giving pid.out. Okay, so whenever the compilation is successful, it will give a num whichever you are assigning after minus o switch. Okay, so now this file will be compiled and it will be given a num pid.out. Okay, so if you do it, so the compilation is successful. Now if you do ls, you can see that this is your pid.c and this is your pid.out. Okay, so pid.out is green because it is executable. So you can now run the pid.out program and you can see whatever process id you are getting. Okay, so if you do /pid.out and you run it, so you can see that process id is 5409. Okay, so if you look at the last list that I have done, so the last process id was 5373, right, when I executed the psax command. Now when I run it, so this is 5409. Okay, so this is greater than, so the process id is gradually increasing one by one. Okay, so if you can ask that this is 5373, then why this is not 5374? Because there are so many processes in between has been created, and those are executed. Okay, and those are finished. So now if you do ps minus x, you will not find this 5409 in its entry, because this process has already exited, right? It is completed, so it will not be shown in there, right? So 5409 is not there. See the 5409 was our program. So after that we have run psa, so it is 5410. Okay, so that is how the process id is assigned. It is increased one by one, and so from that process id you can understand which program was run first or which program was run later. But not always, because process id also has an upper limit. Okay, probably that is equivalent to the maximum value of integer. So in that case what happens, so when the process id reaches the upper value, it again come back to 0. Actually not come back to 0, come back to a lower limit, because 0 or 1, from 1 to that lower limit are basically assigned for your system processes. Okay, or daemon processes. So because system processes or daemon processes are very much required, and that's why those places are reserved, because whenever they are created they can get those values quickly. Because you can understand that the maximum value of integer for a 4-bit for a 64-bit system is very large. So if a process id has to be created within that, if it has to search for a process available process id, it will be large. Okay, so a initial sum, suppose 1 to 300 is reserved for the process for the system processes, and from 300 to rest of the integer max is basically uh, is open for you. Okay, so whenever a process is created, it is taking those values. Okay, so anyways, not getting much into the details. So as you see that this we can get the process id of a process that we are running, right? So now every process is actually created by another process. Okay, so whenever I am running that, whenever I ran that program pid.out, it is basically run by the bash or this shell, right? So this is your bash shell. Okay, so you can see that the parent of it is I mean the pid of the bash shell is 5354. Okay, so what we will do now, we will try to get the parent process id. Okay, so this get pid command gives us the process id of this process. So similarly we have a command or function like get ppid. Ppid stands for parent process id. Okay, so we can use this get ppid to find out the parent process id. Okay, so let us see what will be the parent process id of this process. Okay, so printf the parent process is %d get ppid. Okay, so it will give you the parent process id. So let me give /n at the end, because it will get us to the new line. Okay, Okay, so in the first line, it will now print its own process ID, and in the second line, it will print the parent process's ID. Okay, so save it, exit from Nano, and compile it. So compile it using the -o option so that you can give it a suitable name. Okay, so that is pid.out. So now this is compiled. Now if we run /pid.out, what will happen? So now see, uh, it is telling the process ID is 5451. So this is the process ID of pid.out. Okay, and it is telling the parent process ID is 5354. Now in the PSX output list, if you see this 5354 is nothing but the entry for the bash. So bash is nothing but this shell where we are executing this command, right? So see, we are executing the pid.out in the bash shell, right? So that is our parent. Okay, so you can easily get this ID from using the ppid command. Okay, so you get to know now, you get to understand. So whenever you are executing something on the shell becomes its the executable file's parent, right? So so now you can understand. So whatever process it is here that are running has basically some PID, right? So the PID starts from 1. Okay, so the PID 1. So if you do PS minus X, which I have already done, and if you see the first entry, it is nothing but the init process. Okay, so if I come to the above list, so you can see that the PID 1 is associated with init process. Okay, so init is the first program in your Linux or Unix. Okay, so everything every other program is a child of this init program. Okay, so whatever you do, whatever you uh, whenever you do something that is somehow is go back to the parent id 1 or init process. Okay, so there is a process. So as you get to know that every child now every process has some parent process, right? So if you go to the parent of that parent and parent of the parent, at some point of time you will reach to the pid 1. Okay, so these processes are basically spawned as a tree structure. Okay, and you can also get that tree structure using pstree command. So if I show you like pstree, if you execute this command, a tree like structure of the processes being shown to you. Okay, so if I write pstree and press enter, so see a tree like structure is shown to you. This is nothing but the tree organization of the processes that are currently being executed. Okay, so you can look at it. So systemd is nothing but the int init process, not init process. Okay, so that init process. So this is my folding atom client, so it is automatically run. So you can see that this is a tree structure that are being process tree structure. Okay, so this is nothing but the process tree which you can get using the pstree command. Okay, so this is your init and all the things are running are some processes. Now if I try to find out the bash, the shell that we are running currently, you can also find it out over here. Mm, here we go. So genome terminal bash, and in that bash we have just run pstree, right? So pstree is executed as another process. So you can see the tree structure. Okay, so pstree we have run just now. It has been run from bash, which is from genome terminal, and which is again from some systemd. So this is how you can always get back to the init process. Okay, so you got an idea about how the processes are spawned. So everything is the root of this process tree is the init process. Okay, init. So okay, so we have gone this details. So we have gone how to we have get to know about how to get the process ID and how to get the parent process ID, right? Now what we will do, we'll create process child process. So we'll create a process from another process using fork command. But before creating a process, so okay, so what we can do is we can create a process from another process, and the new process which we are creating from another process is called the child process. Okay, and the process which are generating is called the parent process. Okay, so here is a parent child relationship, right? Because it is a tree structure, right? So what we can do is okay, so do you know that it is possible that when the child is executed and parent has died? Okay, so what happens is whenever a child process is created by a parent process, it is possible that any of it got executed first and the other is continue executing. Okay, so so when a child process is executing but its parent has exited, so those child process is called orphan process. Okay, so we can create I mean we can see that there are orphan process. So we'll see. Okay, so let us first create the processes. Okay, so okay, so create a new C file like nano, and call it like uh, call it like parent dot c. Okay, so we are now creating parent dot c. So what we will do, this process will create another process using the fork command. Okay, so again let us include the files, hash include stdio dot h hash include. So this fork is also belongs to the unistd. So unistd dot h. Okay, so int main, let us do the return 0 first. So you now understand why we have done this return 0 thing, right? Because this is the exit status of the process, right, which is captured by the operating system. So anyways, so to create a process from your program, we use the fork command, fork. Okay, so what does the fork command do? This fork command actually create an exact copy of this same process. Okay, so this is the, it will create the exact copy of the currently running process, or the process from where the fork is being called. Okay, so we'll see what this exact copy means, except few other difference. Okay, so let me show you something. So create another tab and see man of fork. Okay, manual of fork. So use man fork. So you can see the details. So fork creates a new process by duplicating the calling process. Okay, so it will create a duplicate process of the same as the calling process. Okay, so the new process is referred to as the child process. The calling process is called the parent process, as I told you, right? uh, the child process and the parent process run in the separate memory space. So remember, so just a copy of, as I told you, that whenever a program is run, a process is created, means a virtual memory space for that process is being created. Okay, which is referred to as the process. Now whenever you are creating a child out of that process, so a duplicate of that virtual memory space is being created. Okay, and that is called as the child. So the child process and parent process run in separate memory. Okay, so run it separate memory space. So at the time of fork, both the memory space have the same content. Okay, so the fork will duplicate the details of the parent into its memory space. Okay, uh, So let us see, focus on this. The child process is an exact duplicate of the parent process except the following points. Okay. So almost, I mean, 99% are same. Some things, a few things are different, like the process ID, because child process is a new process. Okay, so the process ID has to be different. Okay. Similarly, the parent process ID and all these details are over here, which are just different. So whenever you fork, actually you create a multi-process system, not a multi-threading system. Okay, because fork create a separate process, not a separate thread. Mm, Another point that I want to show you is, so this is the thing, that the child process is created with a single thread of one single thread. The one thread is called fork. The entire virtual address space of the parent is replicated in the child. Okay, including the state of the mutex and all the other things. So this is the important time. The entire virtual address space of the parent is replicated in the child. Okay, so we'll see all these details. We'll see all these details when we do the fork. Okay. So now coming back to our main tab where we are writing the program. Okay. So this is what fork do. So fork will create a same process. Okay. I mean, create a duplicate of the parent process. Okay. So if we write this program, so okay, so for what does fork return? So fork actually returns in parent. So once you do the fork, it will create a new child, right? So now there will have two process. One is parent, one is child. In the parent process, fork will uh, return you the PID of the child. Okay, I mean process ID of the child. But in the child process, fork will return you 0. Okay, so if I show you like, so suppose let me print some message here, printf. Okay, uh, I will create a new process. So this is a declaration from this program that it will create a new process. Okay, so what it will do, so it will do fork. Okay, so if fork is equals to 0, it means it is now in child process. Okay, else it is in the parent process. So see what will happen, as I told you that exact duplicate copy of the parent is being created, right, whenever we are doing fork. But in child it will return 0. So when fork equals to 0, it means it is in child. Okay, so with the so this part will be executed in the child. Okay, and otherwise when fork is not equals to 0, I mean fork doesn't return 0, it means it returns some positive PID of the child process. So it means it is in parent. So this else part actually denotes you the process that are being executed by the parent. So this if part will be executed by the child process, because for that child process the fork return value will be 0. So let us write over here something. So printf I am the child. Okay, and printf like child is telling my PID is %d get PID. Okay, and let us tell that printf child my PPID means parent process ID is %d and do get PPID. Okay, and in the else part, so this else part will be executed by your parent process. Okay, so in the else part, let us write that I am the parent. Okay, and then printf. So I am starting the segment like with parent colon or with child colon, so that we understand from which process the output is we are showing. Okay, so my PID is %d get PID. Okay, and printf parent my PPID is percent. Sorry, I forgot to be this and /n /n over here /n and %d/n. So where we are giving get PPID. Okay. So now what will happen? See, whenever you are running this program, so the same code, whenever the fork is called, it will create a same just the copy of the parent. Okay, so it will create the child will have the same code as the parent. Okay, so now what how will differentiate between the child process and parent process? So the fork will return 0 in the child, but it will return the child process ID non-zero value in the parent. Okay, so using that we can decide uh, whichever is child and whichever is parent. So if fork is equals to 0, it means it is in child. Okay, so this thing will be executed. It does not mean that this else part does not belong to the child program. This else part also belongs to the child program, but in that child program it will never get into the else part because the condition checking will be 0. So only this part will be there. It will be executed in child. Okay, but in the parent program the fork will not return a 0 value, it will return a non-zero value, right? So in parent program since fork will return a non-zero value, it will come to the else part. Okay, so in the parent program only this else part will be executed. Got my point? So I mean, in the parent program, in the children program, child program, they both will have the same code. Okay, I mean, this if part and else part will belong to both the children program, child program, and the parent program. But based on this condition, this code will be the then part will be executed in the child, and the else part will be executed in the parent. Okay, the other part will not be executed. So let us save this. Let us get exited from this. Before getting executed, so what will happen if you run this program? The child process should uh, give its process ID, right? And whenever child process is printing the parent process ID, it should match with the parent's process ID, right? So whenever the child process prints the PPID, it should match the parent's PID, right? And the parent's PPID should be nothing but the bash, right? Because this will be executed in the bash, right? So this get PPID of parent should be the PPID of PID of bash, right? So if we execute it, so let us save it. Okay, and now compile it like gcc parent.c minus o, say parent dot out. Okay, so it is now compiled successfully, and now what we will do? we'll execute this parent dot out. Okay, so this was our initial method, right? Before creating any process, so I will create a new process. Now see, the parent is now giving you the output. Okay, so it is telling that I am the parent, and the my now parent is telling my PID is 5532. Okay, the parent is telling that my PID is 5354. So as we already know that 5354 is nothing but the PPID of the bash, right? So that PPID is there. Now in child, what I am doing, the my PID is 5533. So this is nothing but the PID of the child. Okay, and child is telling my PPID is 5532. Okay, so if you look at that, the parents my PID, so parents PID is 5532, and in child's PPID is 5532. Okay, so both of them are 5532. Okay, it matches, so our knowledge is matching, right? And uh, and so okay, so this is what we are doing. So the parent process id and sorry, the process id of the parent and the ppid of the child matches, right? And we also see that the parent process id of the parent is nothing but the dash itself. Okay, so 5354, if you do the ps minus x, you will get the this is the bash's PID. Okay, so so is there a way we can get the process ID of the child in the parent? So there is no function except the fork. Okay, so what we can do? So see, as I told you, this fork will return you nothing. This fork will return you nothing but the PID of the child process ID, right? So in parent we can save this return value of fork to get the child process ID of that parent. Okay, so child process ID. So let us see. So what we will do now, we will now remove this fork call directly in the if. We'll remove this fork call directly in the if. We'll take an integer value, say int child PID. Okay, and let us initialize with -1. Okay, let us initialize with -1. So what we'll do now, we'll do like child PID is equals to fork. Okay, so what will happen now? See, this fork. So when this process will when the program will be executed, so initially it will child period will be -1. Okay, and when we do this printf, it will do the printf. Now child PID will be uh, will get the value returned by the fork in this line. Okay, so fork will create a new process and it will return the child process id in the parent function, and it in the parent program, and it will return 0 in the child program, right? So in child, if we try to print out the child PID value, so what will happen? So printf. Okay, so in child I am printing the value of child PID. So it should give you 0, right? Because child PID is having the return value of fork, which is nothing but 0 in case of children, right? But in this parent process, what will happen? So if we write over here, so in this parent process we will print the child PID. Okay, it should give you the PID of the child process. Okay, that has just been created. Okay, so this child PID will be populated with the return value of fork. So in the child section it will be 0, and oh, so I forgot to do the child PID. So we have to compare this if with the child PID, right? So you have to compare this with child PID. So when this child PID is 0, so it will print 0, there is no value. But whenever it is in parent, it will print the PID of this child. Okay. So in this child, whatever be the get PID value, okay, will be same as this child PID. So let us see. So if you execute, if you first compile first, so compilation is successful. Now if you execute this file, now if you look at it, so parent is telling this is PID 5546. Now child is telling that my PPID is 5546. So these two matches, right? Now parent is telling my child PID is 5547, right? And child is telling my PID is 5547. Okay. So so now these things as matches. So in child PID it should be 0, right? Because fork return 0 in child. Okay. So you probably have so whenever I show you the program, uh, so if you look at the program, so you will get an idea that whether the same whether it is running the same program or whether two different programs are running. See, this is a same program, right? And in that program, uh, in the single program you cannot get into the if part and the else part at the same time, right? If it is a single program, it cannot get the if part and else part at the same time, right? But when you are looking into the output of this program, see that both the output from the if part and else part is shown, right? It means both of them are executed. How? Because two different processes are created. Okay. So one process is getting into that if part, that is the child process. Another process is getting into the else part. Okay. So this is the parent process. Okay. So I mean, initially, if you do not understand whether it is the same program, it is the same program, but a copy of it is running at the same time. Okay. So one of them is getting into the if then part, another of it is getting into the else part. Okay. So that's why both the output are shown. So anyways, so now the thing is, this child and parent process run this child process and parent process actually run uh, interchangeably. Means since this process code is written over here is very simple, I mean very small, the output it is showing is very small. So you can see that always parent is having first and child is having second value. It is not the case always. Okay. If we have a longer run of this program, you can see that these outputs are coming interchangeably. Okay. So the thing is, it is not always that parent will run first. So you can see that always parent is running first and then the child is getting executed. Okay. See what happened whenever the fork is executed, memory space is created, is allocated for the child. Okay. And once that is allocated, the child process is created and then the execution goes on. But the operating system do the context switching whenever the processes are long. Okay. So what we will do now, we'll now we'll now modify this program to both of them run in kind of infinite loop. Okay. So if we run it in infinite loop, so we can then see that the outputs are coming in an what I can say, in an interleaved way. Okay. So let us write an infinite loop on top of it. So while 1 and then okay, so let us just write one thing, that printf, in while I am having printf child, child is showing its PID. Okay. So get PID. Okay. So whenever I am in child, the child will be in infinite loop and it will infinitely showing its PID. Okay. And whenever I am in parent, I'll do the same thing. I'll do like while 1 and print child, sorry, not child, parent percentage and get PID. Okay, so in this line it will actually uh, print the parent processes PID, right, infinitely, and in the child process will infinitely print the child process PID. Okay, these things will never be executed because it will be run infinitely. Okay, so let us save this program and exit it, and if we compile it and now try to run it, so you can see that parent and child process are coming interchangeably, right? So if I press Ctrl C, Ctrl C will stop executing. So see that here some parent output are showing, then some child outputs are showing, then some parent outputs are showing again. So in this way, interleaved way, it is being executed. Okay, so you can get to understand that how the process scheduling occurs. Okay, the context switching occurs. You probably have got to know these things by now because when there are multiple processes to be run by a single processor, so there has to be context switch, so that following the algorithm, obviously following the scheduling algorithm. So this is preemptive scheduling algorithm, right? Whichever Linux is following is kind of preemptive, because you can see there the processes are interchangeable, right? Because in case of preemptive, whatever in case of non preemptive, what happens whenever a program is being executed, until it is fully executed or until it is stopped, it does not leave the processor, right? So any other new process cannot get the processor. But in case of preemptive scheduling algorithm, be it round robin, be it priority scheduling, whatever you can say. So in case of preemptive scheduling algorithm, what happens? Uh, the the process which are currently being run by the processor, it leaves the processor and gives place to for the new process to be executed. Okay, so again the new process, after some time in round robin scheduling, what happens after some time, the new process again context switches to make place for another process. Okay, so in round robin process, this scheduling goes on round wise. Okay, so you can see that this is kind of preemptive scheduling that Linux follows, right? Because parent is showing some output, then child is showing some output in an interleaved way. Okay, so you got the idea about how the context switching, not context switching, how it looks like when the operating system follows a preemptive scheduling algorithm. Okay, okay. So now let us run the program again, because if you do ps minus x, you will never see that our program is shown there, right? The process ID of the child process and parent process are not shown here, because we have always getting exited from that process. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll now run the infinite loop parent and child process, and we'll see the PSAX output. Okay, and then we can see that since those processes are still running, uh, the entry of those processes in this PSAX list. Okay, so what we'll do now, so we'll run this uh, process, which will run infinitely, and we'll get into the another tab. Okay, so go to the file new tab or click on this plus, it will create a new tab, and in that new tab what we'll do, we'll do the ps minus x. So if you do that, now you can see that two parent dot out is showing. Okay, so one is for one parent dot out is your original parent, another parent dot out is your children. Okay, and the process id is 5589 and 5590. Okay, so if you look at it and if you press Ctrl C, you can see that the child process ID is 5590 and the parent process ID is 5598, right? Sorry, 5589, right? So this is same as this one. Okay, so 5589 and 5590. So this is what happens when we create a program, okay, when we create a child process from another process. So you got the idea about what is doing or how Linux is working. Okay, so now the thing is, if we see, sorry, if we create, okay, let me clear it first. So now again let us open the parent.c. Okay, so now if we create one if we create one variable, suppose test, okay, and we assign some value, suppose 28, okay, and if we do not change this value, I mean this value will be sustained in both parent and child, okay. So if you do like, so now what I am doing, let us now remove this infinite loop, comment it out, okay. We'll need again the infinite loop, but so let it comment out, and let us show what will happen in this. So let us create one file like one variable like test1. So we have assigned test1 equals to 28, okay, and we are assigning test2 to suppose 19, okay. So I have now two variables, integer variables. One is test1 which is assigned 28, another is test2 which is assigned 19, okay. And now what I will do, I will print the value of test1 and test2 over here. So printf, so uh, from child will now print test value of test1 and test2. So child test1 is equals to %d, comma, test2 is equals to %d, okay. And sorry, and we have to also give the variables, right? So test1 and test2. So what I am trying to show is that uh, this these are basically from two different memory space, okay. Printf, let me give /n. So here also we'll do from parent and test1 is equals to %d and test2 is equals to %d/n, okay, and then give the variables test1 and test2, okay. So both of them will print the same value, but always remember they are coming from two different memory location, okay. So what we'll do now, we'll now assign we'll now get some value. So do a scanf into like %d, so we'll do like child, so we'll do like child %d, so give test1 is equals to %d, comma, ampersand of test1, okay. So it will now in child it will ask for a value, right, test1, and do the same thing No, actually, what I'm trying to tell, okay, let's not do test one. Let's do one thing. So, make here uh, test one is equals to some other values, okay. So, suppose 38 and printf test one. Printf from parent test one is equals to %d, comma test one, okay, and you assign test2 value or test1 value is equals to like some other values like 88 in child, okay. So now printf child, so test1 is equals to %d, comma test1, okay. So give /n for new line and here also /n. So my objective is to show you that these variables whichever I am creating before creating the new child will be into both of them, okay, into child and child process and parent process, but they are separate copies, okay. So what will happen, so in the child process the test one will, so initially before we assign any new value to the test one to these variables, it should hold the same value, okay, because it is an exact copy of the memory from this one, okay. So it will have the same value in test1 and test2 before we assign anything, and we are now assigning test1 in child as 88. So in child the test1 now show you value 88, okay. In case of parent, the initial value when we are printing it, it should be same, okay. But as soon as I assign 38, so this 38 will assign to test1 variable within parent, okay. So test1 variable within children will have 88 value and test1 variable in the parent will have 38 value. So whenever we are printing over here, so this test1 will give you the value 38 and this test1 will give you the value 88, okay. So the the thing is initially if we print the value without assigning anything, these two will give same output, right, because we have not assigned any new value, so it will continue with the old value that are assigned, okay. So as soon as we assign new value, you can understand that these two process has separate memory space, because assigning value in one of them is not changing the value in the other, okay. So if we save it now and if you exit from it and if you try to compile it first, so it is successfully compiled and now we'll try to run it, okay. So if you now run it, now you can see that so the details were there. So in the parent, test1 is 28, test2 is 19, okay, and test1 is 38, okay. Now in the child, what is happening, uh, test1 is 28 and 19 as in the parent, because we have not assigned any value. Now child has got 88, okay. Okay, so there is one thing you can look like this child process, and the output of the child process has come after this prompt, right. This is because of the technique which is called COW, okay, copy on write. So I will tell you what is copy on write and what is happening in details just after I explain this. So see what is happening. So this this test one and test two, so this is two different memory space, that is what I am trying to tell you. But whenever we are assigning this test one value and test two value before calling the for, Okay, in both the child and parent process, it will have it will continuously having those two variables with these two values. Okay, now as soon as you assign some values, uh, the value will be there. Value will be new value will be assigned. Okay, but they are into different memories. Okay, so this is in will be in parent memory it will have 38, and in child memory it will have 88. Okay, so this will become into from two different memory location. Uh, One thing, okay, so actually to prove it actually, what we can do is we can infinitely prove this, infinitely print these values of test one variable both in child and parent, and we can see that these two having two different variable. Okay, because with a single run we cannot tell that they are having different memory location and different values, because it might be the case that test one is now assigned 38 before it is assigned 88 in the child, right? So it has assigned 38 and it is now executed with the value 38, right? So it has now shown the value 38, but after it has shown the value 38 in child, the 88 value has been assigned and it has shown. So it is not proved yet with this one run that they are having different memory location. So assigning the value will not be overwritten. So this thing is yet not proved. So what we can do is we can infinitely run this new value, right? So we can infinitely run this new value. So while one, okay, and here also we can do while one. Okay, so if you look at it now, so test one will be assigned 88 in the child and test two will be assigned test one will assign 38 in the in the parent, right? So if now these two are infinitely run, this should infinitely print these two values, right? For child it should print 88, and for parent it should print 38, right? So from that we can tell that these two have different memory location, right? Because there is no chance of overwriting after this assignment, right? After this assignment there is no chance of overwriting those values, right? So if we print it infinitely after assigning these values, so we can tell that these variables are not assigned. I mean, these variable are from different memory location if they show different values, right? Okay, so if we compile it now and if we run it again, so you can see those both the values 38 and 88 are shown, right? For child it is showing 38 or 88, and for parent it is showing 38, or right? So for child it is showing 88, for parent it is showing 38, right? So it is now proved that these two values are coming from different memory location. So it is also now proved that fork is creating just a copy of it uh, and placing it in different memory location. Okay, so that's why these two values are different, because if the test one variable is coming from the same memory location, it should have the same values, right? But since they are different, it is proven that it is coming from different memory location. Okay, so why I have done this now, let us comment this different uh, infinite loop first. Okay, so now what I will do now, I will now print the 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 memory addresses of this test one and test two. Okay, so the memory address of these two variables, and we'll try to see whether they are different or not. Okay, because it is now proven that they are coming from different memory location. So if they are coming from different memory location, these two have different address, right? So we'll print the address of these two variables from child and from parent. Okay, so let us do that. So what we'll do now, we are now printing from child that address of, so address of test one, okay, is equals to something. comma address of test2 is equals to okay. So now we can print the pointer value using %d or using %p as well. Okay, so let us use %p for pointer, and we'll do now the address of test1 and the address of test2, right? So see, this is test1, address of test1, and this will be print. So addr within bracket test1, here it will print the address of test1. Okay, and addr test2, here %p in place of %p, it will print the address of test2, right? And the same thing we'll do in the parent to show that these two are different. Okay, I forgot to give the new line, so let us give the new line /n, and here also we'll do parent. So addr of test1 is equals to %p comma and addr of test2, okay, is equals to %p and /n. Okay, so now what we'll do, we'll now print address of test1 address of test1 and address of test2. Okay, so if you look at it, what is happening, so it is now printing the address of memory address of test1 and memory address of test2, right? In child and in parent also it is printing the memory address of test1 and memory address of test2. Okay, so so as we see that these two memory addresses are different, right? Because whenever I am assigning some value like test1, I am assigning value 88, and the test1 value is assigned 38 in parent. So the whenever we are printing from child and printing from parent, we are getting two different values. So it is proving us that these two are coming from two different location. Okay, now if I try to print the memory address of these two variables, so this should obviously be different, right? So this will this will strengthen our proof that these two actually comes from different memory location, right? So now what we'll do, we'll compile this file and we'll now run again, and let us check what is happening. So as we have done, so till this we have done, right? We have all these PPTs, and test1 value is initially 28 and 19, and in parent we have assigned 38, right? In the children we have assigned 88, so those values are maintained. Now if you check the values of the memory address, so if you look at it, the memory address of test1 in parent is 7FFC. 0x stands for hexadecimal. Okay, so 7FFC, and then there is 7976 and 6A5C, right? And here is 7FFC, 7976, 6A5C. So these two matches. How it is possible? Not even these two also matches, right? So 7FFC, 7976, 6A60, and 7FFC, 7976, 6A60. But we have already proven that these two is coming from two different memory location, right? These two is coming from two different memory location, and that's why those values we have assigned differently in parent and child, they are kept. But whenever we are trying to print the address of those variables, we have found that these two are giving same address, right? How it is possible? Any idea? So how it is possible? Some kind of magic, right? uh, they are having different, they are keeping their values, but still they are showing the same value. Okay. So let us see some details. We'll show the details. So we see that these two values are same. uh, so what we will do now, we will now uh, we'll now run this run some infinite loop in this parent and child, so that these processes continues to execute, and by that time we'll check some values, check some properties of these processes. Okay. So so if now till so whatever we have learned till now, we have seen that we can create a process from using for command, right? And the for command create the exactly same same memory copy of the parent into the children, right? And then we also see that these two are different memory location, and that's why whichever value we are assigning in parent and in child, they are not overwritten, they are persistent, right? So the value 88 in persistent in children, and value 38% in persistent in parent, right? So that's why whenever I am running these values in infinite loop, they are giving two different values. So it is proven that these two have two different memory location, but whenever I am trying to print out the address, they are giving the same memory address. Why and how? So we'll get into the details, and for getting into that details, what we'll do, we have to have the we have to observe into something. Okay. And for doing that, we have to make this two parent I mean the parent process and child process into infinite loop, so that we can get into some details of their proper of their details. Okay. So what we will do now, let us change the process and and make it an infinite loop over here. So this process is now will now continue executing with continue showing. Okay. Continue showing the address of these two variables infinitely. Okay. Save it. So we'll now make an infinite loop in this process, so these two process keeps alive until we do some experiment. So save it, get exited from it, compile it and run it. So let us compile it first and let us run it. Okay. So now it is infinitely showing these two addresses values which are same. Okay. So now we'll observe, so if we come over here and if we do ps minus x, okay, we can see that two parents dot outs are running. Okay. So one of them id is 5717 and another has id is 5718, right? So uh, if you remember that whenever there is a process, a folder is created in slash proc file, right? So if I do slash, sorry, if I do ls slash, that is the home folder, there are some directory over there, right? In the first class I give you the directory details, right? So in this proc folder, uh, the processes that are being executed, those details are there, right? So we'll now investigate within this proc folder. Okay. So the thing is, in that proc folder, we'll have two folders against this process ID. Okay. So if we show you the if you do that ls, proc, you will find that the processes with those IDs. So these are the process IDs, okay. So some folders are there with these process IDs, right? So whenever a process is executing, uh, its respective details are created in the /proc directory against a folder which is containing the same name as its process ID, okay. So if you look at it, our process ID is 5717, another is 5718, okay. So if I come to this list, you can see that there is entry for 5717 and 5718, right? So this is 5717 and this is 5718. So what we will do, we'll get into this folder, okay. So for doing that, we have cd /proc/pid. So our PID is 5717, right? 5717. So now we are in the folder having the details process 5717, okay. And now in the terminal we will create another tab to get into that folder 5718, okay, so that we can side by side check some values. So what we will do now, we will do cd/proc/5718, okay. So here I am now in 5717 18, and here I am now in process 5717, right? So let us clear it first. And now what we'll do, we'll do ls, okay. So it is showing me some files and some folder again, okay. So if you do ll, you can see there are some folder and some files, okay. So we'll work with some of them. So let us do ls, okay, which will have a clear output. Clear ls, okay. So these are some files and folders. So we'll also do this ls over here. So we'll also see that the same files and folders are there, okay. So if you look at it, like the arc status, clear refs, CPU set, all these things are there, okay. So what will happen now, so we'll now examine these files, okay, this maps file. So this maps file will actually have the memory mapping file, and let us see. So what we'll do now, so this is a file, map file is a file, and we'll do cat will show the details of the files, right? Maps. So if you look at it now, what details it is showing. So in the first thing, it is showing a range of memory addresses, okay. And this range of memory addresses is nothing but the virtual memory addresses. So as I told you, whenever a process is created, for that process a virtual memory space is created or address space is created. So whatever is done within that process is maintained within that address space, okay, or within that virtual memory space. Uh, that is there are some security reasons as well for that. So this is some of the this is the memory spaces for this program. So actually if you look at this is for parent.out, okay. So this parent.out, the space memory space for this parent.out is over here, okay. And this is the heap for that parent.out, okay. This is the heap for that parent.out, okay. Now if you look at this is libc mean C library, okay. So in that parent.out, in that parent program, what we have, we have uh, we have uh, we have imported or we have included some header files, right? Because those libraries we are using in our codes, right? So these details, these files in that memory space, in this memory space, we are basically having these library files, okay, the functions written over there, okay. And these are the ld are nothing but the dynamic loader, okay. So this loader actually loads or links and loads these files, these libraries and your program together. This is the memory space for the stack of your program, okay. So this is the memory space of your stack of this program, okay. So if you look at this map files, it will give you the memory address details of your program of this program 5717. Okay, now these memory addresses are obviously the virtual memory addresses and not the physical memory addresses. Okay, now if you come over here and if you do the same thing like cat maps, so you can see also for this the same structure is there. So this is for your parent.out, this is heap, and this is for your libc library of C. This is dynamic loader, this is stack. So you know that whenever a program is run, a memory space is allocated, virtual memory space is allocated. Within that memory space, the stack, the heaps are available, right? So you can see all the details in front of your eyes right now, right? So you have this heap, you have this stack, and all these things are here. So so if we concentrate, okay, we will now getting into some details. So if you concentrate in this portion only, you can see that some of them are RW. So this is nothing but the read write execution permission kind of stuff. Okay, so this RW, so first three of them are having your RWX. Okay, it means read write and execution, and this P denotes a flag which is either P or S. P means private and S means shared. Okay, so all of them are private. Okay, so private to this parent dot thing. So we'll also have our shared memory thing, shared memory coding with shared memory, connecting between two programs using shared memory and other things. So we'll also see there that whenever they are shared memory, this P becomes S. Okay, so in this case we'll see that, but for the timing we have all these private memories. Okay, now this portion you can see all of them are parent dot out. Okay, so they are related to their parent only. So you can see that some of them are r-x. So all the executable files, whichever is currently being executed, but all the executable or binary files are basically lying for this program are basically lying within this memory region. Okay, and remember these memories are virtual memories, not physical memories. So all the codes for this parent dot out which belong to this memory region. Okay, and you can find that there is some RWP. So they are the variables which are writable. Okay, and these are no write permissions or no execution permissions. So these r dash dash are the variables, static variables or read only variables. All these things are there. Okay, so similar goes for all these modules. Okay, so if you look at the libc module, you will have the same thing. One portion where you have the execution permission, one portion you have the write permission, and some other portion you have the read permission only. Okay, so same goes for the linker as well. So if you look at it, so for the linker also, one portion is for execution, another is for rewritable variables, other for the read only contents. Okay, so now if you compare these memory values, like so suppose if you compare this heap uh, here and here, if you compare it, so they are having same variable values like 5 5 b 5 133 c c 400 4000, right? So if you look at it, it's like same value, right? 5 5 b5 133 c 4 4000. Okay, so you can match, you can check side by side that both of them are same. Okay, so this is what we are having. So we are having same virtual I mean, we are having the same virtual memory limitations, but they are mapped to different physical memory address. Okay, now whenever are getting the address of operator using ampersand, they are giving you the address from this virtual memory space and not the physical memory space. So we do not have any direct way to get the physical memory address. Okay, so if I try to explain what is happening when we are doing fork, let us open LibreOffice slides. So suppose this is your physical memory. Okay, this is your physical memory. That is RAM. Okay, now whenever you are running a program, a virtual memory space is created. Okay, this is your virtual memory. Virtual memory, suppose parent process. Okay, so virtual memory for parent process. Okay, so whenever you try to execute a program, a virtual memory space is created, and this virtual memory is mapped. Sorry. So this virtual. What is happening? Let me do it again. Sorry. So as I told you, suppose this is our RAM or physical memory. Okay, so this is our RAM or physical memory, and whenever you are executing a program, you run a program, a virtual memory space for that program is created. Okay, so whatever you do in that program, creating a variable, creating a dynamic memory allocation, is everything is done from this program, this memory, virtual memory only. Okay, and this virtual memory actually, uh, why it is doing like that? So this virtual memory actually is being mapped to some physical memory. Okay, so this virtual memory is mapped into some physical memory. So whenever you do something in that program, assign a variable, write a variable, so this virtual memory contains four kind of stuff. One is your text means the code of the program. Okay, one is your text, another is your data being the dynamic data, as well as your data is being global data, as well as your local data. Okay, and then you have stack. No, data, sorry, data part will have your global data and static data only. Okay, stack, and we'll have those stack and heap. So these things are kept over here, stack and heap. Okay, so with all these things, a virtual memory space is created, which is mapped to the physical memory by operating system. Now whenever you are doing a fork, a same copy of the virtual memory space is created. Okay, a same copy of the virtual memory space is created, having all this heap, stack, data, text as same. And so it is being created, and initially actually it is mapped to the same physical address until you write something in this second process. Okay, so a second virtual memory is created for your process 2, which is the child process of process 1. Okay, so when you do fork on this, a second virtual memory is created, which is same as this one. Okay, which is same as this one. Everything is copied over here. Okay, so all the details, all the variables, all the values are come over in this virtual memory, and initially it is mapped with the same physical memory. Okay, but as soon as after creating this child process, as soon as you write something in the child process, I mean, suppose here is a variable a equals to 5. Okay, and you now write, after creating the process within the child, you write a equals to 10, or maybe within the parent process you write a equals to 18. So as soon as you write something, if you read something, it will always be within the same physical memory. But as soon as you write something, a new physical memory will be allocated. A new physical memory will be allocated and will be mapped to this new virtual memory. Okay, so this is what is called copy on write. Okay, so this is how it works. So whenever you are doing a fork, the virtual memory space is created. So whatever be the virtual memory address, VMA, virtual memory address. Okay, uh, for the parent processes, the same virtual memory address will also get the child process initially. Okay, until you write something. So until you write, so virtual memory address will be same. You even if you write something, even if you don't write something. Okay, and initially they will map to the same physical memory until you write something. So as soon as you write something in a variable within the parent process or within the child process, then a separate uh, copy is created in the physical memory, and the new virtual memory will be mapped to that new physical memory. Okay, this is what is called copy on write. Okay, c copy on write, or cow cow. So copy on write, so what it is doing, it is copying the physical memory details over here. On write means whenever you are writing in some variable. Okay, so this is what is happening. Okay, behind the fork. So this is what the details are. Okay, so that's why whenever you are trying to find out an ampersand of some ampersand of a address of some variable, you are getting this virtual memory address, which is same for both the uh, child process and parent process. Okay, so if this value starts from suppose 500, the virtual memory address space, if it's 500 to 3000 suppose. Okay, so 500 to 3000. Suppose this is the virtual memory address for parent. The same virtual memory address from 500 to 3000 will be uh, created for the child process. Okay, so this will have the same virtual memory address, but this same virtual memory address, I mean, these addresses will be mapped to different physical memory location. Okay, so that's why whenever you are doing ampersand a, whenever you are doing ampersand a in both the child process or the parent process, you are getting same address. Okay, that's why you are getting the same address, because they are returning you the virtual memory address. Okay, but whenever you are assigning some value to a, you are as we have seen that this is coming from to, this is having its own copy of those values, right? That's because they are mapped to different memory location. Okay, so this is what the details about your creating a new process or forking. Okay, did you get it what I have told? So this is what is happening. So this is nothing but the virtual addresses. Okay, and you can see that the same virtual addresses are here. Okay, and that's why whenever you are trying to do this, whenever you are trying to print the address of test1 and test2, they are basically having the same addresses. Okay, same virtual address. Okay, so address of operator doesn't give you or never give you the physical address. It gives you the address from the virtual memory space. Okay. Okay. Now what we'll do now? So we'll so we have learned about that orphan process and Zumbi process, right? So an orphan process is a process whose parent is dead, but child is not. Okay, so now look what is happening, the parent and child is running infinitely, right? So now from a second terminal, what we'll do, we'll send a kill signal. Okay, we already know this thing, right? Kill is used to kill the process, right? So using this kill signal, what we will do, we'll kill the parent process. Okay, so the parent process ID was 5717 and the child process was 5718, right? So yes, 5718. So the what we will do, we'll kill the parent process. Okay, so as soon as we kill the parent process 5717, what we'll see, we'll see that in the output screen only child output is showing. Okay, because parent has killed. Okay, so parent output will not be shown. So if you look in the output screen, it is now showing both the parent output and child output, right? Now as soon as we kill it, okay, as soon as we kill it, you can see only child output is there, no parent output is coming. Okay, because now the parent has been killed. And if you do now ps minus x, so you can see uh, 5354 was the best, and this parent dot out, one parent dot out is there. Okay, that is your 5718. So there are two parent dot out, right? One is for the parent, another is for the children. So now you can see that 5718, the child is remaining, the parent is gone, right? So 5717 is gone. Okay, so now okay, so always keep in mind that whenever a process is so whenever a process become orphan, now this child process has become orphan, right? Because its parent has been killed, so there is no parent for this children. So now this whenever a child process become orphan, this child process actually been this child process is actually being adopted by the init process. Okay, so what we'll do now, so this child process is now adopted by the init process. Now you know that whenever I am in an infinite loop, I can send a signal by pressing Ctrl C to stop it, right? Now, if you in this orphan process, if you try to press Ctrl C, you can see that this process is not exiting. Okay, because Ctrl C, this signal is always caught by the parent and sent to the children. Okay, but Ctrl C is not working. It will not work. Okay, in case of orphan process. Now to make it terminated, we have to again kill it separately. So the kill signal generally goes, I think, through the init process. Okay, so whenever I kill it, so let me kill it. So we'll have 57 kill 5718. Okay, so it will now kill the process. Okay, so now you can see that the output has stopped. Okay, so we have now killed that child process. So so this is what happens. Okay, so now what we will do, so as you see now, so if you do ps minus x, so you can see that there is no entry for parent dot out. So 5354 was our initial bash. Okay, we have two more bash because we have opened two new tab, right? So that's why we have two more bashes over there, but our original shell where we have written the code and executing was 5354, right? And so there is nothing called parent dot slash parent after that. Okay, so it means it has now exited. So we do not have those two files to process now. Okay, so what we will do now, so as I told you, as soon as I kill a parent, it is adopted by it is adopted most probably by the init process. Okay, so what we will do now, we'll again infinitely run, but not this thing. We'll infinitely run the ppid command. Okay, so not this one as well. So we'll run this. We'll infinitely run. Okay. So let us infinitely run the for child get pid and get ppid. Okay. PID equals to this and PPID is equals to this. Okay, it is lesson. Okay, so you already know. So this will be infinitely showing the parent ID and the sorry, the ID PID of itself and the parent PID of this children. Okay, and we'll do the same thing over here. So in parent we'll just let us show. Okay, so PID of this parent is get PID and PPID is get PPID. Okay, so this will now show the parent process ID infinitely for the parent. Okay, so if we now run this program, it will loop through within these two comments, right? Rest of these comments will not be executed because the above will be infinite loop. Okay, same goes for here. So what it will do, it will now print the parent ID and the parent PID and PPID infinitely for both the child and both the uh, for the child and the parent. Okay, now I cannot exactly remember. Most probably, once a child process or once a process uh, become orphan, it is most probably adopted by the init process. Maybe by the init process or maybe by the parent of the parent process. Okay. So if I kill this parent process, either this child will be adopted by the init process or will be adopted by the parent of this process. Okay. So let us see. So save it and exit it, compile it. So now if we run it, so it will now infinitely print the PPIDs of parent and child. Okay. So I forgot. So see, since now the child and parent both are alive, okay, the control C, I mean, since the parent is alive, the control C worked. Okay, control C actually gives the signal. Okay, this control C, I pressed control C and it stopped. But when the process was orphaned, child process was orphaned, I was pressing control C, but it is not exiting. Okay, because the control C signal is caught by the parent process and forwarded it to the children. Okay, so what we will do now? So I'll modify so that it comes to a new line. I forgot to give the new line in the parents file. Okay, so make it compile. So you see that 5354 is the PID of bash, right? So what we will do now? We'll again run this program. Okay, infinitely it will show the PID and PPID, and from another shell, from another terminal tab, what we will do? We'll kill the parent process ID and we'll see where does it go, where does this we'll see where does this control go. I mean, who adopted this new orphan process. Okay, is it the init process or is it the parent of the parent process? Okay, so let us infinitely run this. So now it is infinitely running this. Okay, so in case of parent, we'll have the, so now what we'll do, we'll open another tab, and from that tab we'll kill the parent. So for getting it, so we have to do that ps minus ax. Okay, so that ps minus ax is telling that this is the two parent process. So one is 5878, another is 5879. Okay, so the parent, original parent is 5878 and 5879 is the children. So we'll kill 5878. Okay, so we killed 5878, and if we come over here, only the child output is shown, and which is having actually 1542. Okay, so let us press 1542 and see what is the PID of 1542. So again, let us kill the child process, which is 5879. Okay, so 5879 is now killed. So the once it was killed, the process goes to 1542. So if I look in the table, what is 1542? So 1542 is nothing but the systemd. So systemd is again nothing but the init. Uh, if you run it a tree, so PID 1 is init, okay. And whenever I am running, whenever I have started it, so probably this is for the user, this is the init, okay. So that init was for the system, and this init is for your user, okay. So for this user, this systemd actually uh, becomes its new parent, okay. So for any orphan process, the systemd process or the initd process actually becomes the new parent of the orphan process, or adopt systemd actually adopt the orphan child, okay. So this is about all the details for today. We'll again do something new. uh, Next day what we will do, next day we'll see the use of exec command, okay. Exec. So generally, once a child process is created, this exec command is used. There are variants of exec. So this exec commands are used basically to load the child's address space, uh, replace it with a new process, okay. So we'll see that. So currently what we have parent and child has the same code, same memory address, same virtual memory address, and everything is same, right? Now exec command will replace the details in child or details in parent, wherever you are calling the exec command, okay. So we'll show the details of exec command next day, okay. So today it is all about this. So if you have any queries, if you have any doubt, please ask, okay. So that's it. So I will give you some assignment which will again have to submit it by the next week, and we'll continue this online session until anything is notified by the university and until the college is open, okay. So that's it. You keep on filling up the details in the Macout portal. The initially it was for up to 18th of April, right? So that is this week. So once this week is done, I don't know whether new provision for new entities will be made or not. Let us check and we will do accordingly. Okay, so that is for today. If you have any question, if you face any problem, always reach out to me using Google Classroom, using my personal number. You have it all. You can also mail me. Okay. So if you do not have any queries, then we'll end today's session. Okay, then ending our today's session. Thank you for attending. Have a great day.